There is a secret history of Agile that you've probably never heard of. In fact, here's a quick one. Winston Royce, who actually created Waterfall, the step-by-step model, which starts with requirements analysis, step-by-step all the way till the end, actually found in his final notes that he wanted to do things like get feedback from testing to design to requirements, so gathering that feedback and putting it back into the requirements and design of a product, and also to take an iterative approach, doing the job twice if possible, he says, and involving the customer. Shock horror. Now, all of that sounds very agile to me, but that's not even the half of it. That's not the secret that we're even talking about today, even though that's a really good one. Agile, as we know it, started way back in 1948 in industrial manufacturing. In fact, as far back as 1896, Mr. Sakichi Toyota first introduced the stop and notify concept, which is used in Lean and Agile today, also known as Jidoka or automation. Basically, he had an automatic loom that would stop if the needle broke, which back in the 1800s was a really, really big deal because it stopped garments from being destroyed if the needle broke. That is using the machine and the person together. And so those two things we call automation. But it wasn't until Toyota, the company, that's right, Toyota for car manufacturers, found itself struggling in 1948 after World War II, when parts and metal were really scarce to come by, that they actually created the first inklings of Agile as we know it today. In fact, that was when the Toyota production system, otherwise known as Lean, first came about. And out of that also came Kanban, which was first again used in manufacturing. Kanban, as we know it, used in software development today as part of Agile. And out of that was born all of these other methods: Crystal, Agile Unified Process, Dynamic Systems Delivery Method, Extreme Programming, Feature-Driven Development, Scrum. All of those things fed into the Agile Manifesto as we know it today, or that was formed in 2001. There's a long history and a long line of ideas and frameworks that came together, and there were 17 individuals ultimately who signed the Agile Manifesto. But there's only two that we're going to focus on in this secret history that you've probably never heard of, and that is for Scrum and the new product development game. In fact, Scrum is often synonymous with Agile. You'll see executives saying, oh, well, we're doing Scrum, so we must be doing Agile. But really, they're just probably not even doing all of Scrum. And there is so much more to it than just doing the ceremonies or just doing parts of Scrum. If you do my complete Agile course, of course, you'll see all of those frameworks as well as coaching and Jira, and you'll become much more of an Agile guru than just focusing on one part of Agile. So where did the idea of Scrum come from originally? Well, this term Scrum was chosen because it emphasizes teamwork, but it was first used in a white paper in 1986. In that white paper called The New Product Development Game by two Japanese researchers, Ikejiro Nonaka and Hirotaka Takeuchi. And they first published that in the Harvard Business Review in 1986. Now, Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber took that white paper and they made the model their own. They made their own version of Scrum in their own companies at the time in the early 1990s. And then they came together in 1995 to create a united version of Scrum. But Mr. Nonaka and Mr. Takeuchi said in 1986 that instead of those sequential steps of Waterfall at the time, they wanted to take a holistic or rugby approach, where a team tries to go the distance as a unit, passing the ball back and forth, and that may better serve today's competitive requirements. Now, they researched the top product development companies at the time, and you might recognize some of these names. They are still around today, even 40 years later. We've got Canon, Epson, Brother, 3M, Honda, Xerox. Now, some of them have changed or been updated as time goes on, but at the time, they were the best of the best product development houses. They were pumping out the best products at the time. So they researched those companies and they found 6 things that those companies had in common that they could take away and teach to any other company in order to improve their product development. Let's go through these 6 things really quickly, and then you'll be an expert on the secret history of Agile. The first one, and there are so many things that are similar to Agile as we know it today, built-in instability. Management gives a broad goal to the right team So the right team means we've got actual users, people who use the item and are interested in the item, and they give them the flexibility and the autonomy to meet that broad goal. So that might be to create a brand new product or a brand new car or something that will meet this particular section of the market. They'll get those people from that section of the market involved, and then the people who can complete the project and the work, and they'll give them the flexibility to do it the way that they want to do it. Now, this can be very tricky and challenging without the right people on board, so they need those right people with the right skills. Then they found self-organizing project teams. A project team acts like a startup company from the original idea to implementation. And you'll see this in Agile today where we've got our product owners. So product owners, they take the ideas, they form the product backlog, for example. That turns into user stories, which will go into the sprint backlog or the iteration backlog. And then we'll complete that in a small iteration. But that's all the way from idea all the way to implementation. Self-organizing teams also had these 3 traits, and you're going to love this bit. Autonomy, where they had the high-level goal with the freedom to meet it. Self-transcendence, working as a team with the higher goal in mind. So it's not just about one person, it's about the whole team and the whole product creating that. And cross-fertilization, which today we call cross-functional team members. That is, if you'll do my Agile course, you'll see this a lot, but in general, any Agile teachings should teach you this, the T-shaped cross-functional person that you want in your team with a broad range of skills and one deep specialty, the perfect team member to have in an Agile team. All the way back, it was noted in 1986. Overlapping development phases, understanding that research and development has a longer time frame versus production to create the items. So they always must overlap. Now, this is actually from Agile Unified Process, which is one of the frameworks that fed into the Agile Manifesto in 2001. But this is just one of those ideas. So business modeling, all of these things, analysis and design, we've got these always being worked on and started because then we're developing and implementing, and those two things must overlap. We're always doing a bit of research and development, and we're always implementing, and then we're going to do it again and do it again and do it again, and we're iterating and iterating and iterating, always working on both things. So a wonderful way to do it. Multi-learning was also important in these teams. Members of the project team have a deep interest in the product and the industry. They stay close to any changes. So they're experts and they're actual people who are interested in this area. But there are 2 other things. Multi-level learning. Now, you'll notice this, where at 3M, they had 15% of their time for pursuing their dream. Does that sound familiar? Google has their 20% time, where they allowed sort of 1/5 of the time for engineers to work on their own pet projects. And that's how things like Gmail ended up getting started. I think Google Maps ended up getting started that way. Things like that, really quite incredible. And that's just came from people's ideas and their own learning on the job. Team members also have a never-ending journey to learn outside of work. In Canon, in 1986, there was a lot of just normal peer pressure. The managers and the executives were really voracious learners, and it was hard for everyone to keep up with them, but they saw them doing it. So that was positive peer pressure. Multifunctional, so cross-functional, our T-shaped team member, that's multifunctional learning where we accumulate experience in other areas, other organizations or other departments, and then we still have our one deep specialty. Again, wonderful to see that came about 40 years ago, and so it's not just a recent thing. Subtle control through visual management. If we've got visual management on the wall, we can see where we're heading with our burn down charts, for example. Everyone can see if we're on track or off track. But there were also a few other things that the researchers noted. The right team balance, balancing young, radical ideas with old, seasoned ideas. So putting those 2 things together. Open workspaces so that it's easy to see and talk to team members. Now this is called co-location, where we're getting the team together and making sure that we can talk to them quickly. And information radiators. And again, hopefully that's not a foreign concept, but if it is, check out my Agile course. Goes through all of those things in a lot of detail. There's so much more to Agile, but this is just where a lot of it came from, which is really, really cool. Staying close to real customers. And of course, a big part of Agile today, rewards based on group performance instead of just the individual, not just one person, but everyone as a whole. And then actually tolerating and anticipating mistakes. So all of the mistakes that we make, we can put that into our learnings and fail forward. And lastly, organizational transfer of learning, where knowledge is transmitted in the organization by converting the project activities into a standard practice. For example, the Spotify model today, that's become quite a popular model just from Spotify, really based on a lot of the Agile principles, but they take that and they make that their own particular project model. And so a lot of the other companies did the same thing in the new product development game. And that is really part of the secret history of Agile. I hope you've enjoyed. Don't forget to check out my Agile course. It'll go through all of this in way more detail and you'll have an absolute blast. I'll see you in the next video.